guys, my name is Gerline from Gerline Art, and I will be showing you guys how I create my notebooks. Making notebooks is a very tedious process, but trust me, it will be worth it in the end. So now I'm going to go over the materials. Some of the materials I will have linked below in the description box. You will need a printer, you will need blank paper, and for this project, I'll be using A5 paper, a lamination machine, laminating pouches, a corner round punch. You will need chipboard for the back of your notebooks. You will need binding wire. For this one, size of it will be 2:1 pitch. That's very important. 2:1 pitch. So notebook pitch is basically measured by how many of the hole punches make up each inch. The Cinch binding machine particularly uses 2:1 pitch, but it just depends on what machine you are using and what measurement that machine requires. You'll need the wire cutters to cut your binding wire. For the covers, I use glossy photo paper. You will need a paper trimmer, and most importantly, you will need your Cinch binding machine. So this is the paper that I will be using today. So this paper that I'm using, it's pretty thick compared to the regular copy paper that you usually see, also known as 20-pound paper. Pretty good when it comes to using pens and markers. It does not really bleed as much as the regular paper, so I prefer to use 32-pound paper for my notebooks. So the Cinch settings that I will be using is having the number 12 knob down. This is for this specific size of paper. What I like to do before punching, I use a scissor or just any paper to scrape away. That way when I'm punching my paper, it will punch correctly and lined up correctly. And I also make sure that my back drawer is empty. I find that to be helpful as well. So now it's time for me to punch. I also have a template for the notebook pages on Canva if you are interested. I'll have the link for that below as well. Alright, now it's time for me to punch the paper. I am punching a few papers at a time because I find when I punch too much paper, it is harder for me to press it down. Now I'm going to slide the paper block at the fourth hole. Very important as well. And as you can see, the papers are evenly punched throughout the side of the paper. So now I'm just going to repeat this process until I get a good amount. I like to use binding clips to keep my paper separate for each notebook. It just makes it easier. That way you don't have to recount your paper just in case you lost track of how much paper you had per batch. Now I'm gonna start on my covers. This is the glossy photo paper that I listed previously. These two images are paintings that I have made and I printed it. So now I am using my paper cutter and I am cutting it in half from each paper. Here I'm just repeating the process. I'll have the Canva template for the notebook covers I used in the description box. So now I am done cutting my paper. So while I have my laminator machine warming up, I'm going to now insert the covers into a laminating pouch. So now I see I'm just running them through one by one. Okay, now it's time to cut off the excess laminating material. After cutting, the corners tend to get very sharp, so I like to come in with my corner rounder punch to prevent the corners from poking anyone. One important thing that I do want to note when cutting, you want to cut the left edge very closely. That way it will line up with your journal paper when it's binding. So now I'm just going to repeat the process. So now I'm just repeating the same process that I did with my journal paper. I'm just making sure that I'm cutting the left side because that's where I want the holes to be so it can be the cover. I almost forgot to mention those corners that you see that I marked with a Sharpie. That helps me keep the papers that I'm punching lined up correctly. So that definitely helps with accuracy. And now for the chipboard, it doesn't matter which side, honestly. So I'm just repeating the same process with the chipboard. It will be the backing of my notebook. And I'm just repeating the process again for the rest of them. Alrighty, now for the fun part. We are going to bind our notebook. So the order I like to have is the paper at the bottom, cover for the second part, and my chipboard at the very top. Now I know this looks crazy, but trust me, you'll see why. So now I'm going to hang my binding wire on those side hooks of the binding machine, making sure it's nice in there, all even and straightened out. And I am cutting the excess wire with my wire cutter. Now it's time to close the wire. Depending on the size of the wires you are using, for these notebooks here I am using 5/8 of an inch of the wire, so my setting is at 5/8 of an inch to press down. And now we are done with the first notebook, and I'm just going to repeat the process again for the rest of them. You want to make sure that they are nice and closed, that way any paper won't slip out. And now we are all done. I know the process is a bit tedious, but it is very worth it at the end, as you can see. If you have any questions, definitely drop them down below. I am happy to help. And make sure you check out the links that I have below of the templates, also the materials that I have used for my project. Thank you for watching my video. Don't forget to subscribe. Bye.